Hi there. It's me, Laura from the Trapped Librarian, and I wanted to come in and talk about some ideas for February library lessons. So, if you have a favorite library lesson that you like to teach in February, please comment and share it with us. Or maybe your school has a special event or celebration that you do school wide. I know the first activity I want to talk about is I Love to Read Month, and I know a lot of you do celebrate I Love to Read Month in your schools, but maybe you celebrate some other um, activities school wide. And when we can join in on those school wide celebrations, it helps to put some excitement into the library, and it helps to unify our school community. And so I'm always looking for great ideas for those kinds of things where you can collaborate with others in your building and kind of create a buzz around reading or some kind of subject area that you want to learn about as a school. All right. Well, in February, I think it's a great month for kind of special topics, I guess I should say. And it's such a nice thing to be able to have those special events or special topics in a month in the middle of winter, because a lot of times we're bogged down with being inside. You might have a lot of indoor recess, could be cold outside, depending on where you live. Here in Montana, we have fair amount of that going on. And so anything that you have that can bring a spark to what you're doing at school, I think is welcome. And a lot of the things that I want to share with you today really can have that effect. And they're easy to do. You don't have to implement them in a huge way. There are simple things that you can do even starting tomorrow if you want to liven up your library in February. So I'm going to share my screen and in a minute and just talk to you about some of these ideas. The first event that I'd like to talk about is I Love to Read Month. And I know a lot of you do that. And we have traditionally in my school, we would have maybe an I Love to Read week, and every day would be something different to celebrate a love of reading. Monday, show some book love, bring your favorite book and share a favorite passage with your friends. Tuesday, poem in your pocket. Bring a poem to school in your pocket and take it out and read it to your friends. Wednesday, wearable words. Wear clothing with writing on it and read the messages on your friend's clothing. Thursday, sock it to reading. So crazy sock day. Wear your crazy socks and tell your friends about a crazy good book. And Friday, favorites. Dress like your favorite character from a favorite book. Those are some ideas that we've done in the past for I Love to Read Week. You can celebrate I Love to Read Week anytime in February, or really anytime during the year, right? It doesn't have to be at a certain time of year or a certain week. And sometimes classroom teachers maybe don't like so much craziness. That's why I like to concentrate on the reading part of it, because really the point of it is to share a love of reading and to get people sharing ideas for books and coming into the library and looking for more books and that kind of thing. So whatever you can do for that, I think is really helpful. It's easy. You can Google I Love to Read Week ideas. You'll find all kinds of great ideas, or even ask your students or your teachers. I don't have one of these to show you right now, but I've done a jar of words. So this is the label that I would put on it. And then I would just cut apart these strips and have, it's an estimation jar. So I called it Jar of Words because I filled it with the candy hearts that had the words on them. And then students could each estimate one time and put their guess in a basket. And then at the end of the week, I'd bring the jar to the winner and a free book. A lot of times I would do I Love to Read Week at the same time as my book fair, and maybe you like to do that too. So you might be in the middle of a book fair right now or sometime this month. It's a great time to have a book fair. Another thing I like to do during I Love to Read Week is to have a bookmark exchange. And you can do a bookmark exchange within classes where kids just exchange bookmarks with classmates, or two classes can exchange. We've done it. A friend of mine organized one where we traded bookmarks across the school district, so different classes that were the same grade maybe. And you can do a lot of different things with this. This is one I used with younger kids, and they just drew a picture from a favorite book. Or you could, they could tell about a favorite book. A book I love is, and I think you will like it because, then they can put an illustration on the back. Or if your students are doing research, this is a great time of year for research. So a lot of times my older kids would be in the middle of a research project, and they could tell someone else about a topic that they're researching. Maybe they're researching an animal, 3 things they've learned about it. Maybe they're researching a time in history or a famous person. And I always left room for an illustration. Another thing you can do is book reviews. Students can do a short review of a favorite book, or they can just recommend a book. You can get some colorful sticky notes, put out some pens at a center, and ask everybody to recommend a favorite book and stick those on a bulletin board. I liked to have the teachers do that, and then I could stick the notes on copies of the book and make a book display, and students could see what their teachers enjoy reading, or what they enjoyed reading when they were kids, or what their kids enjoyed reading, that kind of thing. So it's kind of fun to make a book review display or a book recommendation display, and pretty easy too. So you can take like 1 or 2 of these ideas really easily. You don't have to have fancy bookmarks. You can just cut up some construction paper or cardstock and have your students do one of these things to celebrate a love of reading. So that's the first thing that I recommend for this month. I told you I was going to share my screen. I wanted to share my screen just to show you my We Love to Read bulletin board, an activity kit. And here you could do plain sticky notes. There's nothing wrong with that. I have some sticky notes that you can print out in this kit, and it says I love to read, and they're just a place for students and teachers to recommend a book. Another thing, the bookmark exchange. Like I mentioned, I have some templates for that. And then I mentioned the book review. See, these are just on a half a sheet of paper. Students you can print them on colorful paper, or they can color this in, and they can recommend any book, share their opinion. So practicing that rating and reviewing. Instead of stars, we've got hearts, and they can write 1 or 2 sentences that tell why they like the book. This is a quick activity, not something meant to be, to take a really long time. It's not an in-depth book review. And I've got 2 versions of this, so you can use it with younger kids too. I like to use the rate a book activity several times throughout the year, because especially with the younger kids, it gets them in the mindset of reviewing books in the library catalog when they get older, and they're in that habit of choosing on a scale of 1 to 5 how much they liked a book. And then they're also in the habit of writing a sentence or 2 about the book that gives someone a glimpse into it. Here's a picture of that jar of words that I was talking about. This is pretty easy to do. You just need an empty jar. You'll want to clean it out real well. I use my leftover Costco containers for my estimation jars. And then one tip that I have for you is to count the items when you put them in. So I would always count the hearts on their way into the jar. And then I had it written down somewhere. And every night before I went home, I would check through the estimation slips that the students put in the jar, and I would keep out the ones that were the closest. So that way I had almost 500 students in my school. So by the time I got to the end of the week, I didn't have to go through 500 slips of paper. I just had to do for that day, and then I could compare. So that's a little strategy. I don't think I wrote that anywhere in this, but there's those labels. And then the other things, I guess, that I wanted to tell you that are included in here, having trouble. Oh, there's my, sorry. I have these suggestions for those days that I read to you, and then some posters that you could put on a bulletin board to show your what you're doing each day of the week. Also, I didn't show you at the beginning, but I've got the letters to We Love to Read. Got a small size that are easy to just cut around the with a paper cutter, or the larger that you can cut out with your scissors if you have time. So you can make this as easy or as hard as you want it to be. I personally go for easy. That's why I started making my bulletin boards like that. And I just buy some colorful paper to print the letters on. And depending on my time, I either use my paper cutter or cut out with scissors. All right. So the next topic that I recommend that you teach about this month or focus on in your library is the Winter Olympics. And I'm going to link to a blog post after I get off here about what we did in our school for the Winter Olympics. But it can be a really fun kind of spark in your school in the middle of winter. And this year, of course, we've got them happening right now. So many of your students are probably going home after school and watching some of these events on television. So it's a great time to bring some things to the forefront, get some research practice, research skills in with all grades, and make it fun. So in my school, our physical education teacher was really excited about this, and she divided our older students into groups according to countries. So they were in groups of 4 or 5, and they represented a country that was also competing at the Winter Olympics. And then they learned about the different sports that were going on, and they would was clever and had these games and simulations. So they couldn't really do an actual bobsled, but they could do, or a luge, but they could do makeshift bobsleds with the rolling boards. I don't know what you call them, but it's like a dolly that you sit on with the wheels. And anyway, so she would do those kinds of things. And then when they'd come to the library, I kept them on the same teams. And we did, with the older kids, each group researched a country, the country that they represented. And we spent 2 weeks on this, 2 30-minute classes. So they found some basic information about their country and made a poster. And then we made a bulletin boards in the hallways, and each group hung their poster there. So everyone in the school could learn a little tidbit about each country, many of the countries that were represented at the Olympics. And then when those students went to their music class, our music teacher had them listen to the national anthems of the countries, and they learned about the music, the traditional music in that country, and that kind of thing. So as the students moved throughout their specials classes during the weeks while the Winter Olympics were going on, they learned a little about all the different countries that were competing. Now, with my younger students, we didn't do country research, but we researched the we learned a little bit about the sports, about each event. And the Olympics website has really good resources for that that you could use. With my youngest kids, I would use those whole group, and we went through each sport, and I put the article up on the smart board so they could see it and learn a little bit about each one. And then they could also look at the pictures on the website. Winter Olympics, I think it's a great topic to seize right now because the motivation will be very high for your students if they're watching at home and for families. And it's something you can easily collaborate on with other educators in your building. Um, Let me show you a little bit. I'll share my screen again and show you a little bit about the resources that I've created to go with that. So I have a simple bulletin board. You can see in this picture the cards with each of the events. And I use these mostly with the younger students, but you could do either one. So with my second and third grade students, we did a little bit of research on the sports or the events. And the older kids, we did some research on the countries. And so I've included a link to the Olympics websites, and the photos are really great there. So, I really recommend, no matter what you're doing right now, even just for a little bit of awareness at the beginning of your library classes, if you're not going to do any research or anything, pull up the Olympic website and show some photographs from the sports. You're going to have some students in your class who are going home every night and watching. You're going to have some students who aren't. You're going to have maybe students that aren't even aware of some of the events that are going on. So this is a great awareness thing. And I'll tell you, you just never know. You might have a little Olympian, budding Olympian in your school. It's pretty fun when you're watching and you see people from even your home state. Last night we were watching and we saw someone from Missoula competing. My granddaughters, who are young skiers right now, they have been watching for someone from their area who's skiing, who's ski racing, and she's from their area of Montana. So it's fun to connect that way, but it's also fun for those kids to think, well, maybe if I want to, if I'm interested in this, I could find out more and learn how to do these things, and maybe I'll go to the Olympics one day. Yeah, I've also got some besides the bulletin board, letters. There's some posters that you can put on. For my younger kids, I made a scavenger hunt. If you read my blog, I like to use scavenger hunts in the library because it just gets kids moving around. So this is really simple. You just put the cards from the sports around the library in different areas that you hope that you want your students to explore. So when they find the ski jumping card in the dinosaur section, maybe they'll also notice the dinosaur books, or maybe you put that in the winter sports section. And then there's just a word search for for kids to do for fun. So that's the Winter Olympics. I really recommend, like I said, no matter what you do, if you don't want to get too involved, at least bring them in a little bit. Show your students how to look up some of these sports in your online databases that you already subscribe to, and give them those ideas. Light that fire. Even just talking about it might spur some interest, and they might want to come in and find a book on a sport or a country, and have you help them learn more because you lit that fire under them. So that's the second thing I'd like to recommend. And then my favorite is media literacy at this time of year because of the Super Bowl. And I found lessons around advertising techniques using television commercials I've mostly done this with my fourth and fifth grade students, have been highly engaging and spark a lot of critical thinking and conversation between the kids about what's going on in these commercials, and really having them think about it. And I think children need, well, I'm sure you agree with me that children need to know about these things. They need to understand what's happening when when they encounter these media images, videos. It's changed a lot over the years now. We're so keyed into our devices, but we still see ads everywhere. And it's important for students to understand what's happening, what kind of techniques are being used. And it's really good for them to ask, who made the ad? What do they want me to do? They want me to buy something. How are they trying to get me to do it? And I like to teach about this right now at this time of year, because there's so many new commercials coming out with the Super Bowl coming up. And it's a great educational piece for students to know and understand how much money is spent on those advertisements too. How much buzz is happening all over the United States about the Super Bowl among sports fans. So I've got I'm going to share my screen and just show you how I start this. I got to get back to the beginning, but I start by teaching students about five different advertising techniques. And first we talk about that advertising is everywhere. Why? What's the purpose? They want us to spend our money. These companies spend big money to get us to spend ours, and just how much money is spent on advertising. Now, this statistic goes up every year, and I'm sure. And in 2019, over $5 million was the cost of a 30-second Super Bowl commercial. So here are those questions that I was talking about. And then for each technique, I give them some key things to look for. And when we go through the slideshow, we take notes. Oh, that's not it. We take notes on so we take notes right here where it says part 1 on the advertising techniques. And the first day, I do this 2 different days, so 2 weeks apart or a week apart. We take notes on each advertising technique, and I show them an example. So this here is a link to the Charter Triple Play commercial, which I'm still using it, even though it's pretty old. I should find another commercial that uses these techniques in this way. But the way they use the music and the phone number and the price is pretty amazing in this particular commercial. And strong involvement, strong catch as far as things running through your head after. So anyway, for each technique, you don't need me to go through the whole thing, but for each technique, there are some key elements to look for, and then a link to a video. And usually what happens for me in this class is there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of laughter because they're like amazed once you start really analyzing and thinking just about the commercials, how clever these marketers are, And then the next week we fill out. So I have a website, and if you own this, then you have access to that. I have a website where we look for each of those commercials, and then we write down which technique, which technique is the strongest for each commercial. And then I also have an at-home challenge. So for students who want to do this, I usually offer prizes for people who participate, but they can bring this handout home. And on one side, I've got all the key elements of each of the 5 advertising techniques. And then on the other side, are just the boxes with the techniques, and I challenge students to watch the Super Bowl commercials with their family and to fill in the a commercial for each technique. Try to find one for each technique and find their favorite. So that's a really fun lesson. You do not need my resource to do this on your own. Really, all you need to do is find some commercials that you can show your students and have a discussion about. Think about those key elements that are used by marketers, and really just talk about it, because it's an awareness that you want to build in your students. You're getting them stronger in media literacy so they are informed consumers. And the younger we can start that, the better. If you've read my blog, and I'll put a link to that post in the comments hereafter, but if you've read my blog, you've already heard the story of my son, Nick, who he's 31 now, but when he was in first grade, he wanted me to buy a vacuum, an Auric Excel vacuum. And I could not for the life of me figure it out. He was the messiest kid I knew. He never wanted to do his chores, and I figured out he'd seen on a commercial where the vacuum could suck up a 9-pound bowling ball. I mean, even now when I say something to Nick about that, he can tell me what the commercial said. And he wanted the vacuum because he thought it would be cool to do that with the bowling ball. But anyway, that really opened my eyes with a 6 or 7-year-old that these commercials that are aimed at adults are really powerful for kids too. All right, the last recommendation I have for you for February library lessons is president research, because President's Day is always in February, usually the third Monday of the month, and it's a great time for doing some research. There's so many possible presidents. Everyone can have a different one, and you can I think it also fits in with what some teachers are doing in social studies at the time. I remember when I taught first grade, we would learn about some of our early presidents in February because of President's Day. We always tied that in. So I recommend that if you're going to do some research, that you consider president research. I purchased a few years ago a complete set of books about the president, and we got about the presidents, and fortunately we received those. My purchase price covered the hardback book for each president and the ebook, and this was through Abdo. It's a great set. The format is the same in each book, so everyone can have a different book, but you can have them look for the same things or similar information if you want to. And also, your online databases are going to have articles on, I would think, every president, so that you can have some variety, you can have some choice. There's plenty of choices. And then, but you can have a manageable couple weeks of lessons where you're guiding students, and you're going to have these reliable resources, I guess is what I'm thinking. So I always started with kindergarten and first grade. We would do something about either Washington or Lincoln or both. And then starting in second grade, we would choose different presidents. And I like to use this time to have students also practice note taking, but then also show their learning or share their learning, making something with the computer. So we used, I used to use Google Slides, but then my school was a Microsoft school. So we used Office 365 and used PowerPoint to make bookmarks. I have a template and I'll show you, or to make these small, I think, flip books, small books. They're not really flip books, but they're mini books. And then a lift the flap activity. And so anyway, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Now, before I go over here and show this, really you can take the information that I've already shared with you, have your students take notes, have if you want to tell them certain things you want them to find out about each president, about their president, and have it uniform. You can do this yourself. You don't need all of this involved information that I'm going to show you, but I'm just going to show you what I have laid out because it has been successful for me with a K through 6 school. And I'm just going to show you, I think all I have to open to show you is the 2nd and 3rd grade, but you'll get the idea of what I did. I like it because it's scaffolded. So when I would do it every year, students would build on their learning. And I think that's really important, especially when we see students. I only saw them for a lesson once a week for 30 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time for really deep learning. But yet, if I have these scaffolded units where in 2nd grade they do this and they get this much experience, and then in 3rd grade they build upon that, then by the time they're in 5th grade, they've got a lot larger skill set that's really going to help them be successful. So anyway, let me share my screen and show you what I mean. There we go. So like I said, this is the 2nd and 3rd grade unit. And you can see in this photograph, these are what the bookmarks look like. And then this is the lift a flap. This is part of the lift a flap page. So you can see this Calvin Coolidge here. That's actually a flap that can be lifted up. And underneath is a fact about President Coolidge. And so we would actually put both of these on bulletin boards. We'd put the lift a flap on the bulletin board, and that way people who came by in the hallway could lift and read a little bit about any of the presidents they're interested in. And then, so the 3rd graders did that. The 2nd graders made the bookmarks, and each 2nd grader could make 4 bookmarks because that's what would fit on a slide page, a PowerPoint slide page on my template. And they would choose one to hang up on the bulletin board, and they would take one home. They could trade one with a friend. They could do whatever they wanted with the other 3. And so this was a really motivational lesson because of that. You can see the note-taking pages that I used a little bit back there. And then this is a screen from Abdo. I think the biography database is what we used for our research. And so this unit, I'm fumbling for words, also includes links to videos that I created that are tutorials that show you and your students how to use the template in PowerPoint or Google Slides. And that can be really helpful. This says I added these when everyone was doing distance learning, but this can be helpful even if you're not distance learning. You can show this tutorial to your class in person. I did use Flipgrid during distance learning instead of making these printed out resources. So there's a little information here about that. And this contains a lot of information on how to do this with your students. I also included slideshows that you could use too if you don't want to use a video. And these show step by step how to make, like this one is the Lift a Flap project. So it shows students, and you can show this to your class whole group. You could share this with students in your online classroom, or however you want. You could print this. You can print these slides with 6 to a page, and it could be a step-by-step for your students just to reference on a page too. I've done that a lot. I just put them when I do that, I put them in, those clear page protectors, and then they can stay on the tables and use it from class to class. So, anyway, that was a lot of talking by me, but I did wanna show you some ideas, and you again, with all of these, you can make it as big or as small as you want to, but the important part is that you're getting, your students involved and excited about the learning opportunities that you're providing for them in February, and, um, I hope that you'll if you found something new, I hope that you'll try it out and let me know. You can come back here and comment, or send me an email or a message. So again, if you have a favorite lesson that you like to do in February, I hope you'll add it in the comments. If you try something out that I've mentioned here, I hope you'll also add that in the comments. And until next time, I hope you have a great day and a great month.